friends, and welcome with you with our new video of our series PostgreSQL and Flutter. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you do support me by subscribing to my channel. And if you do like this video, please hit the like button. Now, in this video we will talk about updating the seller account, as we have said in the previous video. So first thing comes first, let's log in to a seller account, as we have seen in previous video. Seller at seller.com, and the password we entered. So let's log in. We are logged in now into the seller account page. This seller account page design, it consists of two text fields, some data that we will enter, but now we are adding something new. We are adding an image into the seller account. Now obviously you can add whatever number of text field or data you wish to, but I'm keeping it simple, so I'm just selecting two text fields and one image. The new here is that we need to add an image, and we will see how we can add an image also, and we can save it into our database, and then we can retrieve it later on. So the seller account page starts with this stateless class, which will take us to the seller page, which is a stateful class. Obviously it's a stateful because there are some changes, always changes. The state of this page is changes, that we are picking a stateful widget. This stateful widget object, now this object of the seller page object consists of two text fields, each one have a controller, consists of global key, obviously because this is a form and we will enter data, we will save data, we will persist data in the database. Two methods to keep track of all changes that happens within the text fields, as we have done previously. But the new thing now here is this thing, is the image. How we can save an image. It starts by creating a method. This method takes an argument, whatever name you select. Obviously it's a file, and it's an asynchronous method, and it will return to us a future string. So we will get from this method a string future. Now the first thing is that we need to pick the image, and picking the image is very simple. We use the image picker, but we need to add it into our pubspec.yaml, this one, the image picker. We need to add it to our pubspec.yaml, and then we can use it in here. So the image picker, we will use this method, pick image. Now pick image, you have two options from here. The source of the image could be a gallery, so dot, as you can see here, either a gallery or a camera. So it's totally up to you. So the same method, you could make two methods, one method for the gallery and one method for the camera, and accordingly this image picker will know how to select the image from the gallery or from the camera. Now in case you have selected a camera, you need to select which camera, the rear camera or the front camera. But if you selected the gallery, then this line of code is not necessarily, as there is no camera, will be in the gallery. But if you selected the camera, then you need to specify which camera, the rear camera or the front camera. As you can see here, it's front camera or the rear camera. And if you wish to use both of them, both of the rear and the front, then you have to make a method as well as for each of the camera, the front camera and the rear camera. Okay, now having said that, this is the first step of how we can select and pick an image. The second thing, after we have picked our image, we put it in this variable, which is a file. We need to read this image as bytes using this method .read as bytes, and we save the result in a list of integers, uint8 list. This one, uint8 list. This is the best, most the best way to save an image is by using a uint8 list, because it will compress the volume of the bytes of this image, and it will give us a best result when we will retrieve it later on, when we fetch the image data, when we want to show it later on. So this file, we will read it as bytes, and then we will save it in uint8 list. Now this list of integers, now the integers represent the bytes, the best. So the integers in here represent the bytes. Now this uint8 list, we need to put it in a base 64 code encode, so we can save it as a string. So this list of integers, we will save it as a string, and we can do it by encoding it to a base 64 encode. Base 64 encode. Now we are having a string. In this string there are all the list of integers that we have got from reading our picked image. This is the first step. Now we need to handle this data. As you remember, we are returning a string feature which is supposed to be this one. It's supposed to be this one. Okay. So this list of integers, if it is more than 0, so the bytes is more than 0, that means we have picked a file, this file has been read, and we have a result. In this case, there are two steps. The first step is that we assign the base 64 result into the output of our method, into the return variable of our method. In this case, our method will return a string feature which is the logo image, this one. A string feature, we are returning this. Or sorry, the logo from gallery. This one is the string that we are returning. So this is string, the logo from the logo from gallery. Okay, so we are saving the base 64 into this return type, return value of our method. This is the first thing, because this thing will be saved in the database. Now this part will be saved in the database. Now we need to handle another thing. We need to show the image that we have picked. We need to show it in our app. So the way to do that is that we take this picked file, the file that we picked previously, which is this one. We need to take its path, .path, and then we put it in a file, and this file we set it into a log file variable, and then we need to set new state. Once we have done it, then this state will be changed and we will see the image in here. So once we press in here, the state will be changed and the image will be shown in here. So this is the way, in case you have selected one image and this image have been read to bytes, and bytes have been transferred into list of integer, and list of integer we have converted into a base 64 encoded data. This is the first thing. Once we have done this, we have got two values. One value will be saved into the database and the other value will be shown into our app image area. In case we have failed to pick an image, or in case the seller didn't pick an image, so we have two things. In case we haven't picked, we failed to pick an image, we failed to read an image, or the seller himself or herself didn't want to pick an image. So in the first case, we need to set a null value to the return type of our method, and into the log file we will set a null as well. Instead of this, we will set a null, and in this case the set state will show nothing in our image. The same thing happens if we have an exception. If we have an exception, also the return type will be this, and the image that will be shown in our app will be null. But this is not a good thing to show nothing in your app. This is not a good thing. So you need to show something else. You need to show in your image, although you haven't saved any image, but you need to show something in your app so that the user will know that something went wrong. Something went wrong, or something. What is the update after he do the update? He need to know. He need to realize. The seller need to realize what happened. So just adding nothing into this, the seller will not realize what happened. So we need to do one more step, and this step is that we put another image in case the seller have failed to put an image, to select an image, or in case there is no product, or there is no logo, or there whatever reason we couldn't pick an image. We need to put a replacement of that image, something to show that something happened, but we didn't get a result. So in this case we select, in my case I selected a no product image, no products, an image would says no product. In your case you could put whatever image suitable for you to represent your case. For instance, no image, or no product, or whatever. So this image is also a feature, and we have saved it in our resources file. So the image that we will show as a replacement in case the seller didn't pick an image, in case the seller picked an image but failed to upload it. In all these cases we need to put a replacement image. This replacement image, we will put it in our resources folder. We pick one image suitable for our case, and then we use like this. So get no image data. This is a method. It's a synchronous method. It will give us a string feature. It has to be a string feature because it should be the same return type if, like we have done before, if we have an image, then this image should be a string feature, so as the replacement image. So as the replacement image also should be a string feature. So we will use root bundle.load, and we will choose the image from our resource file. This will convert it into byte data. We will get a bytes object of a byte data object. Now here we need to encode this image into a base 64, so we can get our string, so we can get our future string as a return type. So this byte data object, we will buffer it, and then we will encode it as a uint8 list, as a list of integers, starting from byte number 0 all the way to the how many bytes there in the image, and then we will save this in a no image variable. This no image variable is just a string variable, okay, and then we will return it as a feature. Okay, and we have to do these things. We add this from the base 64. This process will ensure to us will ensure to us that the seller, so the first method will ensure that the seller will pick a logo or an image or whatever media, and then create one output to be saved in the database and one output to be shown on the app. In case this didn't happen and it failed, then we need to create a replacement which we will get it from our resource file and we can use it. Okay, now there is another thing also related to the image. Now we also need to remove this image. Sometimes the seller pick an image, but later on or at the same time maybe he want to change this image, so we need to add another button, which is this button, remove the image. It could happen the seller picked an image and changed his mind, he want to change it right now or change it maybe later, so we need to add another button to remove this image, which is this button, remove. What will happen is that, and remember this is before pushing the button update, because if you push the update button, this image will be saved, will be persisted in the database. Still, you can change it later on. With the normal process, you picking another image and it will be changed. That's no problem. But if you want to remove the image before updating, then you can select this button, which is remove, which the code of it is in here. So if you picked an image, you push the update, this image will be persisted in the database. Later on, if you want to change it, no problem. Again, you can do with this code which we are doing, you can pick another image and also it will be updated. That's no issue. But if you picked an image and at the same time you wish to remove it and you want to replace it to another image, then you need to put a button of remove. So here, this is the code for the remove. Here the code for the remove. Replace company logo, for instance, which is also a variable, a method, and takes an image file. And the same process, except that here the log file will be an image, and in this case it will be 0. It's like be 0, like remove, like no image. Okay, so set state will remove this replaced image with another image that we have selected, This is the issue. This is how we can replace the image with another image. Okay, now let's start with so this is all about the image and how you can do. Now let's start using them. So we need to initialize the state. We need to initialize, as always, as like before we have done, initialize the two text fields, and then we need to dispose them once we have used them, and then we need to build the page. This is totally up to you how you choose to build it. I will not go through it. For me, the important part is when I press this button, what is happening when I press this button, what's going to happen, and how we can save. Now we saw how we can save a text field. Now we need to see how we can save an image, how we can persist an image data in the database. In the previous video we saw how we can persist the data from a text field, and now we will see how we can persist an image data into the database. So once I press the update button, I will go to the update seller detailed method. This is just a method to simplify things, to make code cleaner. Okay, again we will do the validation. The validation, this consists of for these two text fields. It will ensure to us that there is data, that there is data, that the user have entered data in these two fields, which we have talked about in the previous videos. So here, this is an important part. You remember when we said that we need to save some image? If the seller picked an image, then we assign it to logo image. This is the logo image, which is also a string, a name. So if the seller had picked an image, then we save it into this string variable. This is an if statement. Now what if it is a null? What if it's null? If the seller didn't pick an image, or if the seller picked an image actually, but we failed to process that image, we failed to process it. In this case, as we have said before, we need to put a replacement image. The replacement image is this image that we have spoken about before. So in this case, it will make sure to us that either we persist the real image or the replacement image. This is the replacement image. This is a step that you need to do. It's an important step before you send the data to the model class. Before you send the data to the model class, you need to do this step. Otherwise, because what will happen if we don't do this step, most likely we will get an exception when we do the persisting of into the database. Most likely we will get an exception. So as a safety, as a better way of coding our application, we need to do this step. Other than that, it's normal, like all the other videos that we have seen before. We take these three arguments, the company value we get it from this method, and the password, the first name value of this text, also we get it from this method that we track all the changes. And the process is the same. These three arguments, the company name, the first name, and the logo image, which is this one, we pass them into the model class. We will use this update seller details, which takes three arguments, and then it will pass it to the update seller data in the database in this database class, and this one will pass it to this one, which will return to us a future string as well, as you might know. And it takes three arguments, the arguments that we have used, which is the two text fields and the one image, and we persist them. We do a normal update query for each and every one of these variables. And don't forget that you need to update the data for a certain user, not any user. So we need the email of that user. This is how we can update the data for a certain seller, a certain user. So how we can get the email, from where we get the email, how we know that this user that is updating he or her data, what is the email for that user? You remember in the previous video when we logged in, I told you that there is something, we will use it later at the login section, which is this login section. When the user logged in, what we have done is that from the query, from this result, I took the first result parameter, which is the email DB from the database, and I put it in a static variable. Now this, we will get it when the user log into his account, his or her account. So we will get this email and we place it in a static variable. Later on, when the user update, at the same time, of course, the user have logged into his or her account. Now the user want to update the data of his or her account. So we take that static variable of the email, which contains the email, and then we can use it in here. So I believe the process is clear to you. When the user log in to his or her account, we take the first argument, which was the email of that account, and put it in a static field. And then here, when the user want to update his or her data, we need to know this user email, so we can track it in the database, in the table, and update the required tuple, the required row, because we cannot update just like that. We need to know which user is this, so we need the email, we need some reference. So by taking this static variable, we can know now that this user have this email, and accordingly we can update its data. Now if the data is updated, then we can say a string, the same what we have done before. We can write an update, which is UPD. It's like an abbreviation of update, or not. So we have two states: either we succeed to update and persist the new data into the database, or we fail, or we have an exception. So we have three options: update successful, failed, or exception. And when we go to the server account, we will see that we have the same thing. We do a scaffold messenger, snake bar. If the update is successful, we will show an update successful. Pertaining that we have the future that we have got back. The future that we have got back contains an UPD. We have spoke about that in the previous two videos. Now I'm sure that you know how to do that. Or in case the persistent of the updated data is failed, then the scaffold, the snake bar, we will show update failed. Or if there is an exception, in the third case, if there is an exception, we give something went wrong, try again. So this is how we can update all the data, and how we can collect an image, process the image, and then put it in the query. And then the query, we need to get an email reference for that user. What is the email of that user, so we can accordingly update all the data into that user. Now unfortunately in this AVD I don't have inside, there is no pictures inside it for the gallery, because it's just an AVD, so I cannot pick an image from the gallery, because there is no gallery after all. But I will show you pictures later on in the next video I will do it on a regular device, on a mobile, and then I will show you what is the result, what will be the result. But this is the process, this is the entire process of how you can do updating an account of a user, picking the image, persisting the image with all the rest of the data, and have the account of that user updated. As for the buyer account, okay, now let's log into a buyer account. In a buyer account, there is no image, there is just data. So if we log into a buyer account, there is no image, but you could also put an image. You could put an avatar for that buyer, and the process will be the same. The process will be the same, whether it's a seller account, whether it's a buyer account. So if it's just text fields, then it's normal things. You can do it. We know how to do it now. If you need to add an avatar for that buyer or whatever image you wish, I suppose now you know how to do it, as we have done with the seller account. This is all about updating the account and how we can update the data of the buyer account or the seller account. In the next video we will see how we can fetch the data of the seller, how we can fetch all the details, the text fields and the image, and how we show them into our app. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you do subscribe to my channel, and if you like this video I hope you hit the like button. Thank you very much.